Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Okay, let's talk about what is happening in Minnesota with all of the Somalis and Tim Walls and et cetera, et cetera. Now, I think the natural inclination of the Democrats is to say, these people are just, you're racist and they're not frauding at anyone at all. And you're making blanket statements about these people because they're Black. And the Republican response to this is send all of the immigrants home. These Somalis are fraudsters. They're Muslim. They are ruining this country. And I think the truth is somewhere in between. And I'm going to show you the video. Well, I'm going to have you listen to it because I don't want him to copyright me. I'm going to have you listen to the video that convinced me that this was much deeper than just, oh, everyone's lying about them committing fraud. And, these people are racist and these people just need to leave. They're all bad. They're doing this alone, etc. My personal thought is that there were people high up in the government, including Tim Walz, that are supporting this. So let's take a listen. This is Bruce Rivers. He's going to explain the Somali fraud. And I'm hoping y'all can hear this because,
snow in the cold.
Well, Somalis have lived in Minnesota for more than 30 years now. Tens of thousands came as refugees of a civil war in their homeland, and their populations in this state is estimated at about 107,000.
This is a verdict of $7 million fraud that the state of Minnesota, through the Attorney General's office, charged Mr. Youssef.
So he's about to talk about a case that happened. A Minnesota jury found Abdi Fattah Youssef guilty of stealing more than $7 million from the state Medicaid program. And prosecutors said that his home health agency billed for fake services and funneled the money into luxury spending. But months later, a judge stunned the public by overturning the entire verdict, ruling that the evidence was circumstantial and another person may have been responsible. That, to me, screams inside job. Let's listen to Bruce the lawyer.
He was defended by Ian Burrell. It was actually his father's a friend of mine, helped me get into law school. So I know these guys pretty well, good lawyers. And they tried the case and the jury convicted him, right?
And that's the key. The jury convicted him. It's not like there was a mistrial or the jury convicted him. So after they went through the entire due process and the court case and the evidence and the cross-examination and the examination and the direct, the jury found this person guilty. This is not the person on the screen. Just letting you guys know.
So, well, then he must go to prison, right? No, because then they filed a motion for dismissal, notwithstanding the verdict, and the judge granted a judgment of acquittal after the verdict.
After the verdict, a judge said, nah, I don't think so. Could you guys imagine? And I'm just going to say this. Can you imagine if this was like a Black person, like an African-American person or like a Hispanic person? Something is amiss here. Something is not right. After the verdict, can you imagine someone breaking into your home, shooting your dog, taking all of your possessions? The jury finds them guilty. And then the judge goes, I don't think there was enough evidence. I don't think so. That means that the judge promised this person something. That is the immediate response that I thought of. Oh, they promised him something.
So that raises a question, right? How is that possible? Well, let me tell you. So you've got a situation where a judge can do that. The judge can, after a verdict, the judge can look at it and say, you know what, I just don't think the evidence here is sufficient. And we'll get into what the judge ruled in this case. But the whole scheme, not just with this guy, but with, a bunch of other people, they're claiming it's like $8 billion or some crazy number like that. It's like, it's huge. When you look at the stuff that they buy, I don't know why they wouldn't have included a tax count, because I guarantee you they're not paying taxes on the luxury items that buy.
This is exactly right. So he's going to explain in a little bit the amount of things they're buying. He only spent 43,000 at a luxury car dealership. So I'm like, what did he really buy there? But the other things, they're walking around with Prada and Gucci and Louis Vuitton, real things. And then we're asking, well, did he actually pay taxes on this? Because that's what Bruce Rivers is asking. That in itself is a separate charge. Like, that's a separate charge. As someone who pays business taxes, that is a separate charge. They should be coming after him. But the fact that they're not tells me that people in the Minnesota government are complicit.
Car. I mean, this is $7 million. You can buy a lot of shit with $7 million. When you have a judgment of acquittal, first of all, if a jury acquits you, there's no right for anybody to appeal. You're done. You're a free man, woman. If the judge gives you a judgment of acquittal before the jury verdict, no appeal. However, if the judge grants a judgment of acquittal after a jury verdict, it can get appealed. Now, the jury verdict gets a lot of deference on appeal, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So Yusuf was charged in 2024 after an investigation that concluded that he defrauded Minnesota Medical Assistance Program through his agency, Promise Health Services. Well, the judge was saying that the judge didn't tie him to this organization or said there wasn't sufficient evidence to tie him circumstantially, even though he had a lot of purchases and they didn't have an office.
So this man had a ton of purchases, didn't have an office. He made these purchases with the money, but they were like, but the judge goes, well, I can't really tie him directly to this crime. Here's what this sounds like to me. Somebody got in that judge's ear and said, you better not convict this Somali man. They will call you a racist. You will never have a job again. You better acquit him. That's what it sounds like. Somebody high up said, don't do it. We know this is happening. We need them for votes. Yeah, that's how this works. It's not a lie that when Republicans say people are frauding the government, they're not lying. Yes, people are doing this.
But they bought a lot of furniture, but didn't have an office. Promise Health Services claimed to provide home and community-based waivered services. The company had no actual office and operated for years from a mailbox at Central Avenue address. Here's the thing. Why do you need to have an address? Why do you need to have an office address? I mean, you can do things out of your home. You're doing services in people's home. So I don't know that that's a big deal. According to the charges, Yusuf and several family members illegally obtained Medicaid fraud by billing services that were never provided, submitting bills supported by falsified or non-existent documentation, significant overbilling for services, and offering kickbacks to clients to induce them to accept services from agencies. The Attorney General's office, through Keith Ellison, he was our representative. He was in Congress for a while. Now he's our Attorney General. They announced that 3 people had been charged with defrauding the Medicaid program out of $9 million.
$9 million. Yusuf funneled over $1 million from Promise's personal bank account and withdrew more than $387,000 in cash. I think the issue with this is that it wasn't Uncle Sam, meaning it wasn't the IRS going after this. $80,000 at high-end retail clothing stores. So what else? If anything, this just proves that they were fraudulent. They weren't paying taxes. And wait until you guys find out that they're sending this money back to Somalia and it's going to terrorist groups.
Yusuf was one of them, and his was $7 million. Investigators determined that the Promise sold more than $7 million during Yusuf's operation of the business. Evidence supplied by the Attorney General's office showed that Yusuf funneled over $1 million from their accounts, from the business accounts, into his personal bank accounts, and withdrew more than $387,000 in cash. Well, he needed it. He needed it because he felt, a real empathy for strippers.
This guy's a good nutcase. But what's interesting is how much money they were able to spend. If you and I spent, I can tell you this from like having an accountant and having to actually file taxes properly. If you and I were to spend money like this flippantly and this egregiously, they would come after us so quickly. We'd have all you guys see it happen with the rappers all the time, right? People have liens, they have, people, they garnish their wages. Somebody allowed this to happen.
In its entirety, where does I suppose the buck stops with Walz. I mean, it has to. I mean, honestly, and I'm a Democrat, but we'll keep an eye on this case. And my guess is that this verdict that was overturned by the judge is going to get overturned by the Court of Appeals. Because when you have a verdict that not only is on the substantive counts, but also on the aggravating counts, and here's how it happens. So you have a trial, and then there's evidence that's presented during the trial. And then the jury has to decide also if there are aggravating factors. And not always, but it's called a Blakely jury. And so what the court does is, at the request of the prosecution, is submit a separate questionnaire to the jury after the verdict. Okay, now that you found this, answer these questions. And if the answer is an affirmative, they found aggravating factors. So if the jury finds aggravating factors, that gives the judge the option then to sentence above the guidelines. But instead, she threw it all out. It is a very tricky legal situation. But for right now, Mr. Youssef is sitting pretty because he's acquitted. Now he's up on appeal. And I think his whole thing is under seal, which I think is also, because I tried to get access to the verdicts and the verdict forms, and I can't even get access to anything. And that's why I was trying to figure out what were the aggravating factors.
Mm-hmm.
My guess it's the level of money that went out the door, the type of victim that we're talking about, particularly vulnerable, that kind of thing.
Children.
So we'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts. Make sure you subscribe. Follow.
Okay. I want you guys to this last piece. It was under seal. Nobody can find it. Why? Because there is a paper trail leading to somebody. Who does he know? Who has he let this slip by? Who in the office let him go? He and his wife. Who let them spend millions of dollars without paying taxes? Who let them send millions of dollars to Somalia? Somebody in the government is complicit with this. They're not working alone. You guys let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys in the next one.